Napoleon, the French Alexander the Great, one of the best military commanders who ever lived, had a vivacious sex life. He lost his virginity in a Paris brothel. It was his first wife, Josephine, who taught him lovemaking skills. Napoleon married twice. Although Napoleon claimed he had only 7 mistresses, he probably had at least 21. Napoleon wasn't only small in stature, he also had a small penis. One of Napoleon's mistresses was a famous French actress who had sex also with his arch-enemy, Duke Wellington. She revealed Duke Wellington was far better in bed. His 2 illegitimate sons with 2 different mistresses were born a day apart, 1 month after he had married Austrian Princess Marie Louise on April 1st, 1810. His Polish mistress, Marie Walewska, gave birth to Alexandra on May 4th, 1810. His Austrian mistress, Emilie Krauss, gave birth to his son Eugen a day earlier, on May 3rd, 1810. Napoleon said repeatedly that the only woman he ever really loved was Josephine. While Napoleon is most typically known as a conqueror of armies, as is the case with many male conquerors throughout history, he also enjoyed conquests of women. Napoleon boasted that power was his aphrodisiac and that I take women and forget them. However, he never forgot about women with whom he was either in love or had sex. He made great efforts to provide them with a good life. Number 1. Napoleon's first love, Caroline Colombier. Napoleon met Caroline Colombier in 1786, while he was stationed in the town of Valence, shortly after he had graduated from a military academy. Although Napoleon and Caroline never had sex, they were in love. He was 17 and she was 25. 20 years later, after Caroline contacted Napoleon for a favor, he showered her and her family with gifts. Number 2. Napoleon's first sexual experience. Around 1795, Napoleon had sex for the first time. He lost his virginity to a prostitute in a Paris brothel. Actually, he succeeded only when trying with the 4th prostitute, supposedly to get a real-life experience for the romantic novel he was writing. In case you are interested, the title of the novel was Clisson et Eugénie. Number 3. Napoleon's fiancée was a future queen of Sweden, Désirée Clary. Désirée Clary's sister, Julie, married Napoleon's older brother, Joseph Bonaparte. Later, Napoleon became interested in Désirée and they were engaged. Désirée had little interest in Napoleon, and neither did her relatives, which resented having 2 Bonapartes in the family. After Napoleon met femme fatale Josephine de Beauharnais in 1795, he broke the engagement. Désirée later married Jean-Baptiste Jules Bernadotte, one of Napoleon's generals, who became the King of Sweden and Napoleon's mortal enemy. Désirée was a pawn in the schemes between Bernadotte and Napoleon and served as a messenger between these 2 powerful men. Number 4. Napoleon's true love and his first wife was Josephine de Beauharnais. Josephine de Beauharnais, 1763-1814, was the only woman Napoleon truly loved. They met at a ball, hosted by Josephine's lover, Paul Barras, in 1795. Josephine was irresistibly attractive. She was exotic, had grace, and was infamous for her skills in lovemaking. For example, she decorated her bedroom with numerous mirrors to create an illusion of orgy during sex. Josephine was famous to perform in bed something called zigzags. However, nobody knows exactly what this was. It was Josephine who created a sexually confident Napoleon. Napoleon loved to perform cunnilingus on Josephine. Young Napoleon was smitten by Josephine, and they married in 1796, despite the disapproval of Napoleon's family. During their wedding night, Napoleon discovered he had to share a bed with Josephine's dog, who was very protective. Actually, the dog bit Napoleon in the leg while he had sex with Josephine. Only 2 days after the wedding, Napoleon left to fight in Italy. Josephine immediately found herself a lover, a handsome Lieutenant Hippolyte Charles. Napoleon wrote Josephine passionate letters, but she seldomly replied. His letters were full of love and emotions, hers dry and boring. She also mockingly read his letters to her circle of friends. Napoleon was kissing the image of Josephine all the time. She barely looked at his picture. When Josephine visited Napoleon in Italy, she brought her lover Hippolyte with her. Napoleon was so blindly in love with Josephine that he didn't notice her affair. On her return to Paris, Josephine continued having sex with Hippolyte. Number 5. Napoleon had revenge sex. However, 2 years later, during the Egyptian campaign, 1798-1801, Napoleon's brother told him about Josephine's affair, and this time Napoleon believed. Unfortunately, the love letter was intercepted by the British and publicly published to humiliate Napoleon. Soon he began an affair with Pauline Forez, the wife of one of his lieutenants. He had revenge sex. Napoleon nicknamed Pauline Cleopatra. Although Napoleon sought a divorce, he forgave Josephine. He was afraid of abandonment. Also, she stopped having affairs and tried to win him over. However, Napoleon was no longer a man who could be won over by a woman. Now, power was his mistress. Number 6. Napoleon divorced because his wife couldn't bear children. Although he loved her, they divorced in 1810, expressing devotion to each other. Napoleon gave Josephine a mansion and a generous annual income. They remained in a good relationship, most probably still secretly in love. In 1814, Napoleon was exiled to Elba, a small island near the French coast. That same year, Josephine died. Napoleon was devastated upon hearing the news of Josephine's death, and he locked himself in his room, staying there without food and water for 2 days. In 1821, Napoleon died in exile on the island of St. Helena in the Atlantic Ocean. His last thought went to his beloved Josephine. Number 7. Napoleon fathered his first child with his sister's maid. Napoleon met a beautiful 18-year-old Eleanor de la Plaine, 1787-1968, in 1805. She was his sister Caroline's servant and also a mistress of her husband. Since his marriage with Josephine was childless, but Josephine had 2 children from her previous marriage, everyone thought Napoleon was sterile. In 1806, Napoleon had sex with Eleanor to test the rumor. Less than a year later, on December 13, 1806, Eleanor gave birth to Napoleon's son, Leon. Number 8. Napoleon had numerous mistresses all over Europe. Napoleon claimed he had only 7 mistresses, yet historians counted at least 21. He had sex with the most beautiful women all over Europe. Let's have a look at the 2 of his hottest mistresses. First, Napoleon had an affair with gorgeous Polish Countess Marie Walewska. In 1807, Napoleon met Countess Marie Walewska, 1786-1817, near Warsaw, Poland, while she was standing in the crowd, eager to see him. The affair was kept secret since Marie tried to protect her reputation. She visited Napoleon late in the evening and left early in the morning. Nonetheless, everyone in the higher circles knew of the affair. Napoleon fell head over heels in love. Although Marie claimed in her biography that the affair with Napoleon was purely on behalf of saving Poland, she too fell in love with Napoleon. Napoleon's friends recalled Napoleon displayed miraculous energy during that time. On May 4, 1810, Marie gave birth to Alexandre Joseph. Although Alexandre was undoubtedly Napoleon's son, Marie's elderly husband, who agreed with his wife's affair, acknowledged him as his own. Secondly, Napoleon even had a secret mistress, Emily Krauss. When Napoleon came to Austria in 1805, he met a beautiful 20-year-old Emily Krauss, an adopted daughter of an Austrian officer. He immediately took her as his mistress. Dressed as a boy, she accompanied him on many military expeditions under the pseudonym Felix. Her existence was a heavily guarded secret. She also accompanied Napoleon in Paris, but she was not allowed to live in court. She gave birth to Napoleon's son, Eugène, on May 3, 1810. The next day, Napoleon's second son, Alexandre, with his Polish mistress Marie Walewska, was born. Just 1 month before, on April 1810, Napoleon had married his second wife, Austrian Princess Marie-Louise, and ended the 5-year-long affair with Emily. Number 9. Napoleon's last mistress, Albine de Montholon. In 1815, Napoleon was exiled to the remote island of St. Helena. In Napoleon's retinue was also young Albine de Montholon, 1779-1848, a girl known for having lots of lovers. Although she was accompanied by her third husband, Charles de Montholon, she embarked on numerous affairs, including the one with Napoleon. Albine gave birth to 2 of Napoleon's daughters, Helene, 1816-1907, and Josephine, 1818-1819. When Napoleon learned Albine was having an affair also with another man, he sent her away from the island. Number 10. Napoleon married the Austrian princess Marie-Louise. Napoleon became the Emperor of France in 1805. However, he faced a huge problem. His wife Josephine wasn't able to bear children anymore. The couple divorced in 1810, and Napoleon married the 19-year-old Austrian princess Marie-Louise. Napoleon wasn't present at his wedding. In the beginning, Marie-Louise resented Napoleon since her great-aunt Marie Antoinette was guillotined in France in 1793, and because Napoleon fought numerous military campaigns against the Austrians. She called him an antichrist and opposed the marriage. However, Napoleon found a way around her armor, and she soon fell in love with him. Marie-Louise was shy and gentle. She was an obedient wife. Napoleon missed the passionate and outgoing Josephine, but came to respect Marie-Louise. She bore him a son. Almost died during childbirth, which tempted Napoleon to promise her he would never ask her to give birth to another heir. After Napoleon's exile to Elba in 1814, Marie-Louise and their son, Napoleon II, returned to Vienna. Marie's father didn't allow her to visit Napoleon. Number 11. Napoleon had sex with opera and theater stars. Napoleon was certainly one of the biggest celebrities of the 19th century. As such, he met lots of other famous people. Needless to say, his position and fame opened the bedrooms of many famous opera and theater stars, namely opera singers Caroline Branchou and Giuseppina Grassini. Caroline Branchou, 1778-1850, was a French soprano at the Paris Opera. In 1802, she became Napoleon's mistress. In turn, Napoleon accelerated her career and also arranged a salary of 3,000 francs, $14,000 in today's value, for her. Giuseppina Grassini, 1773-1850, was Italian contralto singer. In 1800, Napoleon met Giuseppina in Milano, Italy, and took her as a lover. She accompanied him to Paris, where she also performed in opera. Between 1802 and 1804, Napoleon had affairs with 2 French actresses, Marguerite Georges, 1787-1867, and Josephine Duchesnois, 1777-1835. They were 2 of the finest stage actresses of the era. Marguerite was first the mistress of Napoleon's brother Lucien, before she started an affair with Napoleon. After Napoleon's defeat in 1814, the playful actress had an affair with Napoleon's arch-rival on the European battlefields, Duke Wellington. Besides Italian opera singer Giuseppina Grassi, Marguerite Georges was the only woman who had sex with both Napoleon and his arch-rival, Duke Wellington. If Giuseppina never publicly revealed who was better in bed, this was not the case with Margarita. Rising from obscure Corsican nobility during the tumultuous period of the French Revolution, his intelligence, military successes, and charisma made Napoleon a French emperor. But it wasn't only his public life that was illustrious, it was also his sex life that was filled with spicy details. As his fame grew, his sexual innocence was disappearing. As a teenager, he ate cherries with his love interest, and as a general and emperor, he had raunchy affairs with Europe's most beautiful woman. Undoubtedly, he saw women as conquests, but what is interesting, Napoleon took care of most of his former mistresses and wives, making sure they were at least economically well off.